Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Fair M, and we're going to get to hear from Fair M today, but in Act 4, Scene 3, which means, oh my goodness, we have to play a lot of catch up because there's a lot that we have missed and we need to get back to. So just real quick recap of where we are. Lubick and Mariana were arrested once Zuino found out that Blanche had been stolen, and Zuino wants her back. M has been faking physical infirmities. She's been faking blindness and deafness to try to get around the romantic advances of Vallingford and Mountney. But really what she did was she turned off Manville, who was like, nope, and then Mountney was like, nope. So Vallingford is the only one left that wants to woo her. So that's where we are at the end of Act 3, Scene 5, which is where we were yesterday. So Act 3, Scene 6, we're with William. He and Blanche have been traveling back to court. And remember, she's been masked this whole time because there was the whole switcheroo bit. But as they were going there, they got caught by soldiers. So Act 3, Scene 6, William is being marched in by soldiers. And he's like, what is this? This is such a, this is not the way that I should be treated and blah, blah, blah. And he's brought before the Earl of Dymarch, who's one of the two guys that he left in charge when he and Lubick went so that he could court Blanche, the other guy being Dyro. And Dymarch is like, who are you? And William is like, well, obviously you're a traitor because you don't recognize me. Don't you know who I am? And Dymarch is like, oh my goodness, I am so sorry that I didn't recognize you. And William is like, but hang on a second, why is everybody preparing for war? Like, why do you have soldiers guarding all of the stuff to begin with? That's not the state that I left things in when I left. And apparently while he was gone, Dymarch and Dyro got into some sort of beef. They offended each other, and now both of them are building their armies like 2 miles away from each other, like they're ready to go to war. And William is like, oh, I bet, like, I don't want to have to deal with this. I bet that you're both going to be traitors and I'm going to have to... And that's the end of Act 3, Scene 6. So then we're in Act 4. Hooray! Act 4. We start off with Manville, who is now talking to a random citizen in Manchester who has a daughter named Eleanor. And they are making plans for Manville to marry Eleanor. And the citizen is like, well, maybe your dad should come and finish making the arrangements. Or I guess, like, I don't want to have to go to Manchester. So if we need to just settle this here, we can do that. Manville is like, okay, I'll go get my dad, and then we can, he and you can sort out the details of this marriage that I will have to Eleanor. So he leaves, but then Vallingford comes in and starts talking to the citizen, and he's like, is that guy from Manchester? That's it. And they're like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I've heard some stuff about that guy. Like, he's maybe kind of a double dealer, and he was supposed to marry this miller's daughter, but then he just sort of left her in the lurch, and like she's not handling it well. She might like do some self-harm because of that. And Eleanor is like, well, if that's who that guy really is, like, I don't want to marry him. And Vallingford is like, oh no, I didn't realize that he was gonna be your husband. So sorry about that. And the citizen is like, let's go inside and see if we can talk some of this out and like give us some more information. Vallingford's like, yep, I'm right behind you. But then he gets a moment on the stage by himself at the very end of the scene where he's like, now I get my revenge on Manville, which means I'm gonna get to marry M, because of course that logic tracks. If you set up a woman's ex-lover, then you get to marry her. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, he goes off to find the miller to be like, Manville's a bad guy. And that's the end of that scene. So Act 4, Scene 2, we are back with William, and he's, reinstated as who he should be. But a Danish ambassador comes in and he's like, I've got a message from King Zuino. He wants his daughter Blanche returned. You sort of stole away with her in the middle of the night. And William's like, no, I didn't. I don't have Blanche. Like, he's welcome to come here and I'll greet him and we'll have dinner or whatever, but I don't have Blanche. I can't send her back because I don't have her. And the ambassador's like, are you sure that's your final answer? And William's like, yep. So the ambassador leaves, and then William calls over Dymarch and he's like, let's ready the troops just in case. And Dymarch is like, okay, cool. And that's the end of that scene. So whew, now we've made it to Act 4, Scene 3, which is where today's monologue happens. So we're almost there. So now we're back with the miller. It's like swapping back and forth between we're going to hang out with the nobles and we're going to hang out with the clowns between the various scenes. Now we're back with the clowns. We're with the miller who's talking to Vallingford, and the miller's like, you're like, my daughter's deaf and blind now. You're still after her? Like, even Manville was like, no, and she's not handling that so well. She might get into some self-harm. And Vallingford is like, but no, this is a testament of how much I really love her. And the miller's like, look, I'm not going to tell my daughter who she can and can't or should or shouldn't marry, but if you want to try to woo her, you're welcome to. And at which point M comes in and she sees Vallingford and she's like, oh my God, this clown again. I'm going to have to pretend to be blind again. So she comes in and she's like, Father, where are you? Where is my father? And Vallingford tries to woo her, and she's still very much not going for it. She's not giving him anything. She's not getting into it at all. And Vallingford turns to the miller and he tries to appeal to the miller, saying like he's a gentleman in King William's court. But she's still like, then you're chasing the wrong person. Like, I'm not in love with you. I'm in love with somebody else. At which point Vallingford says that Manville is now engaged to be married to somebody else, somewhere else. And she turns to the miller and she's like, is this true? He's supposed to marry somebody else now? And the miller's like, yeah, he's engaged to somebody else. And she says, then, good father, pardon the injury that I have done to you, only causing your grief by overfond affecting a man so truthless. And you, likewise, sir, I pray, hold me excused. And I hope that this cause will allow sufficiently for me. My love to Manville, thinking he would requite it, hath made me double with my father and you, and many more besides, which I will no longer hide from you. That enticing speeches should not beguile me, I have made myself deaf to any but him. And lest any man's person should please me more than his, I have dissembled the want of sight. Both which shadows of my irrevocable affections I have not spared to confirm before him, my father, and all other amorous solicitors, wherewith not made acquainted. I perceive my true intent hath wrought mine own sorrow, and seeking by love to be regarded am cut off with contempt and despised. So she confesses. That's what this is. This is her confession. She confesses to both her father and to Vallingford that she's just been pretending to be blind and deaf so that she could stay focused just on Manville. She was like, I didn't want to listen to the speeches of any other suitors because I only wanted to hear from Manville. I didn't want to look at other men because I only wanted to look at Manville. But then she's like, well, but I guess I maybe should have let him in on it, or let somebody in on it, because since he didn't know, he believed it too, and now he's forsaken me, and I'm cut off and I'm despised. And the miller looks at her, he's like, really, you were faking this whole time? And she's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, she's like, I need a minute, I need some time by myself, because I really, I shot myself in the foot with this one. So she goes inside to be sad, and Vallingford is like, but can you love me? And the miller's like, not now. This is not the time for that. You can see that my daughter is very upset and very hurt, and I'm going to go inside and I'm going to comfort her. And that's the end of Act 4, Scene 3. So it's a little bit of an interesting way to have like that plot be revealed that she was doing it, is that she just comes out and says it, but she says it because she has to. Her plans have now been destroyed and she's lost the love of her life. And I do sort of love it that the miller is like, first of all, that he says he can't tell his daughter who she should marry, but then also that he's like, not now, dude. I gotta go comfort my daughter because she's in pain. This is very sad for her. So anyway, that's the end of Act 4, Scene 3. We only have one scene left in this play, which I think has just about 2 monologues left in it. So we're just about done with this one. But we need to see, I mean, this is classified as a comedy. Are we going to end up with a wedding, and whose wedding is it going to be? And is Lubeck going to get out of jail? And, we got to figure out in all of these weird love pairings and love triangles, who's gonna end up getting married and having the happy ending. And we will find out more about that tomorrow. Mwah.